Okay. See, it all fits in. Saturn is the limit, but it's putting the structure or the box around all the other planets. It's your body, it's your backbone. If you have a weak back, if you have bad teeth, if you had bad joints, that's a Saturn problem. Why is a Saturn problem there? It interferes, it delays, but it's your physical image that's challenging the emotional and mental and spiritual being to work around those limitations and still make things work. Like Robert Louis Stevenson. He was handicapped. He was bedridden his whole life, but he wrote his books from bed, but his imagination of the world, and they were incredible books. Treasure Island, like it's working with what you have and knowing what you can't do anything about, knowing this sense of Saturn, what's practical, what's not. It's not always seemingly fair, but Saturn's about justice. It's about making the effort and getting, and sometimes, if suppose you've been mean to 100 people, but that was like 20, 30 years ago, and you've been going along, you haven't been mean to anyone since, but you haven't been extra kind either. Well, 30 years later, 20 years later, something comes up, and all of a sudden you expect a little kindness is still not coming to you because you haven't paid off the old debt. What have you done with your time? Are you growing? Grow up, deal with your time. Are you taking care of things, or other people have to take care of things for you? That's a weak Saturn. Or are you just always bossing people? That's too strong a Saturn. And they can be interrelated. But these are the tickets that get you into seeing the Saturn. As we start to work a chart, we start putting these pieces together, and you start to understand how the different layers of Saturn come in and are being a presence in your life, and how to make use of it rather than be disadvantaged by it. Saturn is essentially the friend telling what you need to fix. You think you're perfect, and Saturn's saying, no, but you got to fix this. Don't tell me that. I'm telling you that, but it's, can you listen? Can you hear? Are you ready to work to fix things? A lot depends on the right understanding Jupiter. So wisdom comes when Jupiter and Saturn are in a good alignment with each other, and you're understanding, you can understand your father or responsibilities. When you understand what's needed to accomplish something, wow, you can wisely guide your actions. If you don't understand properly, it's going to be hard to guide your actions properly. And the results of them will be not so proper. Okay. So when Saturn's in the angular houses, these are the houses of dynamic being, where you're trying to be yourself, you're trying to be secure, you're trying to be in a relationship, you're trying to be accomplished in a career, you want to be honored or honorable. Those are the houses where you're naturally inclined to go and drive for that. So what happens when Saturn goes into the angular houses? You're going to be driving and pushing your inhibition. You're going to feel restrained, that it's not working so easy, and you're going to have to work harder if I'm going to get there. It's still dynamic, but it's the crystallization, the reserve, the consciousness of Saturn is going to be a presence in how you're trying to be that house. So trying to be your own identity, Saturn in the first house, your self-image. When Saturn's going to be there, you're still really aware of your own being and what you project, who you're trying to be, but Saturn's there and you don't think it's good enough. You always feel, I'm not good enough, so it's going to make you a little shy or reserved or not quick to talk, not quick to project. And by not being quick to project, it's making a dynamic use of the restrictive Saturn principle. You're projecting the inhibition in your identity. So you start off serious, not joking. Okay, well, if you took singing, I mean, a lot of people were very accomplished, a lot of doctors, a lot of very accomplished people with Saturn in the first house. They set themselves up, they took the time, they got it. But in doing that, they're still not the most effervescent personalities. They tend to be on the serious side, on the defensive side. If I've done this much work, you should do too. It's still a subjective thing. If Saturn's on the 10th house, it's up around influencing people. Who's got authority? Who's in charge? Who can direct things? Who's got the biggest honor, the most respect? And You have Saturn there, you're driving to get respect and honor, but you're always feeling you're not enough respect and honor. There's always it's not enough. What's next? I got to do something more. I got more accomplishment. To someone with Saturn below, saying, "You're seeing so ambitious. You already got well established. What are you complaining about? How come that pressure's there?" But it's got your attention. That's where you have to work to get there. Saturn in the 7th house, your first thing you think is difficulties in relationships, marriage to an old person, late marriage, inhibitions in marriage, unhappy marriages. This is often the traditional meanings you get. What it really means is you're going to be serious about and inhibited about being with someone. Is this the person I should be? Should I not be there? You're going to be defensive about who you're going to attract. And when you're being responsible of who you're attracting, you're measuring rather than projecting. You're measuring, is this good enough? Is this not good enough? It's a setting side. It's interactive. Could we accomplish things together? But there will certainly be an element of rules and regulation and respect and inhibition and planning around relationships, cautious around relationships, defensive. Now, if you attract a person that's not defensive at all about relationships, that's going to be a troubled relationship. But if you attract someone else that is responsible in relationships, that might be a common factor. It's not all good or all bad. Nobody can be all good or all bad at any time. Someone's a murderer that's murdered 5 people, still 23 hours of most days, they're not being a murderer. They just have a nerve that can take them that point when it blows up at certain points. Nobody's all bad. Nobody's all good. It's a multifaceted, multi-layered matrix. This is your DNA. These are your predispositions. It doesn't mean you can't overcome them. It just means it's going to take a lot of effort to overcome the things that are naturally yours. And sometimes, rather than trying to overcome them, you're better off to learn how to use them properly and use them well. If it's not working this way, how do you use it in another way? That's where astrology gets very healing. It opens up options. So my point here is with these angular houses, you're dynamically trying to be this house, and Saturn's in there. So Saturn adds their seriousness and inhibition. It makes it more important, more serious to have to get that. So Saturn in the 4th house, I really have to be secure. I've got to be secure at home. And home is never secure enough. So it's over controlling at home. But there's a nature to just be personally very cautious about their security. And that will tie into what job they attract. All of these, you're projecting, it's a dynamic house of houses of being myself, being secure, being related, being honored. And Saturn's there, it makes it serious, it makes it heavy, it makes a need to be accomplished, it makes you inhibited there and feel it's never good enough, or make you really, I gotta have my defenses up, I gotta project how serious I am, I gotta project how responsible I am, or I gotta project how bossy I am. If you're in a relationship, or if you got Saturn in the 7th house, you might attract a bossy partner, or you might be telling the partner what to do. But if it's on the ascendant, you'll be telling the rules and have trouble living up to the rules coming from the partner. So these areas naturally have a stressful relationship to each other. So you put Saturn in any one, it's going to square and oppose the others. There's going to be other factors. It's going to have a secondary effect on these other houses, but it's enough to just see that first house presence. So you're projecting, it's dynamic, but it's a dynamic caution, a dynamic reserve, a dynamic patience. Patience is another thing of Saturn. Mars isn't patient. Jupiter isn't patient. Saturn's patient. Okay. Where are the challenges to your patience? Everywhere. They're all against me. I'm never patient. I got to work on something. I'm never patient. But I'm having to be patient. I have to work on things to be patient, even if nobody else is. That's for me, Saturn in the 12th house. Okay. In a way, for me, the Saturn in the 12th house is, well, we'll come around to it. It's just, I never get recognition for what I've accomplished, or I work so hard to never. That's stupid. It's how you take on it at the age of where you are, at the times you're going through. There's a texture of how you have your relationship around any, but we have our houses as areas of concern. And they're natural areas we can relate to. And when a planet's in there, we're going to use it. So if it happens to be Saturn, you're going to use your authority or responsibility to be accomplished. So if Saturn's The second, 11th, 8th, 5th house are houses of having things, having and using what you have, having resources. Second house, having talents, having friends and status and being able to influence friends, Saturn in the 11th house. The 8th house, having joint resources, having resources in trust with others. 5th house, having performance, having kids, having things you can play with, things you can work with, or play with on your own. They're having things, but the Saturn inhibits the having things, but challenges it to get more established in having those very things. It's never enough. It creates discontent that forces the inhibition to have to get in the second house money. So someone to prove a point for authority, they'll use their resources to prove their point. I'll pay for this, so I got to maintain this position. But at the same time, they're basically defensive of money, don't feel they have enough, but they're going to be serious about making money or depressed when there isn't there. And the work is make the money, use it to build up talents and use it. But you're normally doing this, and Saturn's coming in there making it a little slower, making it a little bit more patient. I don't have this ready. I'm going to take some time to get this. Or more negatively, I'll never get this. I'll never have enough money, so I better just settle for this. There's a tendency to accept the mediocre or the cautious side of things, the conservative, defensive side of things, where Saturn is. But long term, if you have inhibition, it's the seed of ambition. The only way you're going to overcome inhibition is by becoming ambitious, so that you can turn it around. So the most ambitious people are the most inhibited. The most inhibited people will be the most ambitious. The people in between won't take it to those extremes. So the Saturn in the 11th house is of friends and enemies. You're projecting out to people in the society and community. Here, you're serious. You want to be responsible, and you want to have friends that listen to you, or you want to be part of the peer group. You want respect among friends. You want authority in your friendships. Well, most people, it's just enough to have friends you can party with. This is an extra situation. As a partier, you'll be serious. And friendships, it will be difficult, Saturn, to just loosen up and be friends. Let's just go out for a drink. Saturn is not inclined to do that. But it's, there's a need to get respect. So usually this type of person will be defensive about friendships, not have a lot of friendships, because it's not Jupiter, Saturn there, not have a lot of friendships, have a few, one or two that are very serious. They know for a long time. So you might have a childhood friend that you stayed in touch with and is one of your main friends all your life, but new people may have more difficulty coming in. That's the Saturn in that 11th house.